Hi and welcome to Travel with Manuela. Today we're going to travel down to the good old USA, and this is the first part of a 5-part video series about Las Vegas, Nevada. If you would have asked me 7 years ago, will I ever take my kids to Nevada before the age of 21? I would have told you absolutely not. And not because 21 is the legal drinking age in Las Vegas, but because it's all focused on adults. They did have some activities for kids. For example, Circus was actually a really cool circus. However, it is too focused on the adult portion and adult entertainment. So it's not somewhere that I would have felt comfortable taking my kids. Having said that, I was in Las Vegas last year, and I have to say, it's changed. Now, you still have the girls in the bikinis, which is normal. I mean, we see that at the beach whenever we go anyway. But you don't have the gentlemen handing out the cards at night. You don't wake up in the morning to see cards splattered everywhere. They've really cleaned up their act. They've really made it into a more family-friendly destination. So today, if my kids were that age, I totally would bring them to Las Vegas. If you're thinking of taking your kids to Las Vegas, absolutely. They'd have a blast. Now keep in mind that even though there's a lot of attractions, it's still very adult focused. Compared to when I went 7 years ago to now, Las Vegas has become a lot more focused on gambling and shows. When I went back then, there was still gambling and shows, but it wasn't as focused on that. It was more focused on the attractions and everything that goes on, all the lights, all the excitement, where now they've cleaned it up a little bit, but I find that a lot of the attractions that used to be so great that I used to love going, and a lot of the free ones have been taken away. I guess because the casinos weren't making a lot of money on it, but it was something that I really enjoyed 7 years ago, and I was a little disappointed that a couple of them weren't there, but I still had a good time. Now let's talk about getting around in Vegas. Of course you can walk, you can take a cab, or you can take the good old tram. Let's start with the tram. Now the tram itself is behind the strip, so you have to actually go through in the hotels to get to the tram. I personally found this very inconvenient because you have to know the hotel in order to be able to navigate your way around it. It seemed like it took forever for us to get to it, but having said that, while I was there was construction going on, so I'm sure it's way more convenient now. But the tram itself is comfortable. I had no issues with it. It got us where we need to be real quick. But why the tram is not for me is because I personally feel like you miss out on so much when you go on the tram. There is, of course, the excitement, the crowds, the lights, and the free shows when you're walking up and down the strip. It's so much that you miss. So if you've been to Vegas a million times and you've seen it all, okay, fine, take the tram. But there's nothing that beats that excitement, that thrill of being on the Las Vegas Strip. A cab is another way to go. You want to make sure that you know exactly where you're going because they do tend to take you on the scenic route, but they are expensive, but they get the job done. And if you know exactly where you want to go and you're staying on the Strip, there's no reason why you should pay more than you need to. And then, of course, there's walking. Now with walking, you can stroll down the Strip, you can stop at Bellagio to watch the fountains, you can stop at New York to take pictures with the Statue of Liberty, or you can decide last minute, hey, I want to take a roller coaster ride, and you get up on the roller coaster at New York. Or you can decide just to take a stroll inside the buildings because there is so much to see inside the buildings. For example, Bellagio also has the gardens indoors. The Treasure Island has the pirate ships, and the Paris and Bally's hotels have a really cool underground kind of strip mall thing happening where they have little cafes. And of course you can't beat Venetian. Venetian is like you're in Italy. You can stroll into Venetian, look at all the different architect and paintings on the ceiling, and it really feels like you're in Italy. Really going to Vegas, it almost feels like you travel the world in 1 week. Now, when it comes to nightlife, you really want to do your research because they are various parties and they're for all different ages. So you do have your mixed parties like Coyote Ugly, tends to be an older crowd and a country crowd, but you're like me and you just want to party and you don't care, this is the place to go. If you're going on a bachelorette party, you're going to want to check out Men of Vegas. That's kind of like a Magic Mike type show. Amazing. And if you just want to watch your typical Cirque du Soleil show, I personally recommend Le Rêve. Absolutely love that show. But I'll have another video on shows and attractions later. But just to give you a briefing, they were all good. Matt Franco is definitely something you want to check out as well. Absolutely loved him. When it comes to hotels, you definitely need to do your research as well. There is something for everybody. I'm going to do a separate video on this, but just to give you a quick briefing, the Cosmopolitan is for like the hipster crowd. Bellagio is more of older crowd, but they tend to have a lot of family members as well. They do more conventions more than anything, kind of like MGM. New York is exciting. It feels like you're in New York the whole time you're there. And Bally's and Paris are probably the two least expensive ones next to Flamingo. But they tend to be a little bit more run down because they're older hotels. But for bang for your buck, it's a great hotel. And when it comes to Bellagio, Flamingo, Bally's, Paris, Cosmopolitan, they are in, I would say, the perfect locations. Smack dead in the middle of the strip. It'll take you the same amount of time to walk to each end, where if you go to something like Malibu Bay, it's the only one that actually has a beach. However, it's at the very end of the strip. Now, if you're looking to walk out to the sign, that's great because that's where the sign is. But if you want to go into town and party in, you're going to have to buy a bus ticket. Now, that's another thing I didn't mention in the last segment was the bus. You can buy 2 or 3 day passes where you take the local bus from one side of the strip to the other. And you just kind of keep reusing it like a regular bus pass. Now, when it comes to the opposite end of the strip, you have Malibu Bay is the first one, and then you have Stratosphere, which is the very last one. Now, if you're going to stay at Stratosphere, invest in that bus pass. Trust me, you're going to want it. You are far down the strip. It's going to take you at least an hour and a half to get from one end of the strip to the other. So at that point, you're looking at an hour just to get to the middle of the strip. Trust me, buy the pass. Each hotel has its own attractions and its own unique quality about them. So that's why you definitely need to do your research. And that's why I have to do a whole separate video on that because it'll take way too long to add it into this one. One thing, especially new goers to Vegas tend to leave out, which I personally did the first time I went, is Old Vegas. Old Vegas is very authentic and it's got a lot of character and charm. You can zip line over the buildings. It's just a thrill all on its own. So you definitely, even if it's just for a day, want to check out Old Vegas. I'll do a separate video on that as well. Well, that's it for part 1. Let me link below some of the tourist websites that you can check out different things to do in Vegas. Definitely there's some free things you want to check out while you're there, and the excitement and thrill, you can really see it come out on the tourist board videos. So I'm going to link that below, and I want to thank you for watching this video. Please like, share, and subscribe, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.